Okay, so in this video we are learning how to factor all those quadratics in two variables. And still, this is one of the discussion topic in 5.4. Okay, and so in these supplemental exercises, we're gonna do some more examples here. So the first example is to factor x squared plus 5xy minus 14y squared. So now before I get started, to successfully learn how to factor these quadratics in two variables, you need to look back at those videos that I showed you how to factor the quadratics in one variable with leading coefficient 1 and with leading coefficient other than 1. You need to have those skills mastered before we can actually incorporate all that into these problems here. And also in class, I already showed you how you can recognize a trinomial here as a quadratic in two variables. Okay, so now the first point to start here is to pretend. The first thing to start is to pretend that this trinomial, this quadratic in two variables, has only one variable. So I'm just simply gonna skip or ignore the y variable in this problem. And so after pretending, the polynomial, the quadratic, is gonna look like 5x squared plus 5x. X squared plus 5x minus 14. Okay, so now factoring x squared plus 5x minus 14 is just simply x and x in the two pairs of parentheses. And then once again, the same thing we've been doing all over. We need to look for two factors of negative 14, including signs. That would sum to be positive 5. So here I would need plus 7 and minus 2. But now, keep in mind, this is not going to be the end of our problem here, because the problem originally started out with two variables, and there was the y in the original problem. So now I'm going to have to put the y back into the problem. So now x plus 7y in parentheses times x minus 2y. That is the factor form of my original quadratic in two variables. Another example. Example 2, we are factoring a squared minus 4ab minus 21b squared. And so now once again, here we have a quadratic expression in two variables, a and b. So now step number 1 here is to pretend that the polynomial, the quadratic here, only has one variable. And so a squared minus 4a minus 21. So that's the polynomial, the quadratic, after I pretend that the other variable is gone. And so now factoring this polynomial, this quadratic, is quite simple. Produce for yourself two pairs of parentheses, once again, with the a and with the a. And here you're gonna need two factors of negative 21 that sum to be negative 4. So those two numbers would be negative 7 and plus 3. But once again, keep in mind, here is not going to be the end of our problem, because the original problem started out with two variables, a and b. So now I'm going to need to put in my b in the final answer. And here is how I put in my b. And that is how I finish factoring my quadratic in two variables. Example number 3. Just another example for you to try. And here we want to factor. This time 6x squared minus 5xy minus 6y squared. Okay, and so now with this quadratic polynomial, notice the leading coefficient is other than 1, and it has two variables. So first, I'm still gonna pretend that it has only one variable. So here we have 6x squared minus 5x minus 6 for now. Okay, and here working with this quadratic expression with leading coefficient other than 1, the way to factor that is to create a square box with 4 entries once again. And here I'm going to need to put in my 6x squared right here, and then 6 times negative 36, I mean 6 times negative 6 is going to give me negative 36, and the two factors of negative 36 would sum to be negative 5 is going to be negative 9 and positive 4. And here I'm going to put in my negative 9 and positive 4 with the x. And now for the two entries on the upper row, I'm going to look for the GCF, and that's going to be 2x. And then once I found 2x, in 6x squared right here, the other factor I can find is going to be 3x, because 3x times 2x is 6x squared. And here's how I can fill in the rest of them. Here I'm going to need plus 2, and here I'm going to need minus 3. So my factoring problem, so to factor my original quadratic, there must be 3x plus 2 and 2x minus 3 in my factors. However, keep in mind once again, this is not the end of our problem. The original problem had the y as the extra variable, so I'm going to need to put that y together with the plus 2 and the minus 3 here. And this is my final answer. That is how I factor my quadratic in the third example. In the last example, example number 4, the quadratic to be factored here is, 3a squared minus ab minus 14b squared. And so we've been through 3 examples. So in this one here, allow me to cut it a little shorter in terms of the explanations. Now, once again, pretend that there's only one variable, 3a squared minus a minus 14. So here, once again, a quadratic expression with leading coefficient other than 1. I'm going to need the square. I'm going to need the square box to factor. And here I'm going to put my 3a squared. 3 times negative 14 is going to give me 3 times negative 14 is going to give me negative 42. And now I'm going to need to find two factors of negative 42 that would sum to be negative 1. So the two factors would be negative 7 and positive 6. And here here's where I'm going to put them. Negative 7 and 6, and with the a. And now I'm going to need, so here's my GCF for the two entries on the upper row, 3a, and so I'm going to need 2a right here, and I would need plus, I need just simply an a here, sorry, and I need a 2 right there, a plus 2, and here I'm going to need a minus 7. And so my factors for sure must contain 3a minus 7 and a plus 2 in my factors. But however, keep in mind once again, this is not the end to our problem, because the original problem had the variable b as the extra variable, as the second variable. So now I'm going to have to put in that b in my final factor form. And here 3a minus 7b in quantity times a plus 2b. That would be the factor form of my original quadratic in two variables.